Hi guys, it's Sophie. So today I'm going to be doing my fiction etc. side of my November wrap up. Now there's a fair amount to be getting into still, so I'm just going to go straight in and make myself stop blathering. The first thing I got to this month was The Long Walk, which is the second novel in the collection of the Bachman books by Stephen King. This is a novel that is really quite gruesome. It's about a competition that takes place in America in which essentially a group of young boys are walking continually for hours and hours and days and walking each other down to the death. I actually found it quite hard to read. Now I normally don't get bothered by sort of thrillers or horror or gruesome things, but this has something really nasty about it. And also something that was slightly kind of relatable, because I think everyone's had that moment where they've been out for a little bit too long and they're tired and they know what it's like to want to sit down. And the relatability just made it really weird. If anyone's read this one, I'd love to know if you found this one a creepier Stephen King than normal, because I certainly did. And it's put me off a little bit of reading the other two, just because it did properly give me sort of that little chill. I don't mind it every now and again, but it just meant I wasn't going to read it back to back. It's good. It's good. This is why I like Stephen King. He actually has the ability to make me feel freaked out every now and again. I also managed to finish off McSweeney's, the issue 47, and really enjoyed it. Really interesting experience. I bought, which I think I've shown you, won't have shown you, maybe have shown you, don't know, but I bought another issue of McSweeney's because it was just fun and nice and really artistically done. And yeah, I think I will see how I get on. I'll have a few more editions maybe, but it might be a regular thing. We will soon see. But yeah, to finish this one off. And the next one that I finished, if you watched my Try Story tag, you'll already know about, but it was Tales of Accidental Genius by Simon Van Booy. And I got on with this more than I thought I would. I'd read in November, if you watched my last video, I read The Lonely City, which is talking about the feeling of being alone within a large place, and the feeling of being alone while surrounded by people. And this focuses on a lot of sort of similar themes of sort of loneliness, but also that being surrounded by other individuals. And I found this funny and touching, and I actually cried at one of the stories, which is quite unusual for me, especially with short stories. But yeah, I enjoyed it an awful lot more than I thought I was going to. There's one story about an old man whose goldfish dies that shouldn't be as sad as it is. But yeah, I think that it's one of those things where I completely stumbled upon it, but I'm really glad I did. And I know that he's written some novels as well, so he's potentially going to be someone in 2017 that I keep my eye out for and pick a little bit more of his work up, because it was just beautiful writing as well as really well-formed stories. So yeah, really impressed. And the next one I got round to was The Man Who Wouldn't Get Up by David Lodge. Now I felt quite middling about this collection, to be honest. I found the stories quite forgettable, though I did enjoy them whilst I was reading them, but it was only something that took me about half an hour because it's so small. And the title story, which is the first story, is by far the best in the collection, which is always a bit of an issue because you then have worse stories thereon in. There were a couple about sort of lads on holiday, which were quite funny, but again kind of broadly forgettable. One about a boy who is hoarding fireworks for fireworks night. Another one about someone who works on a train platform handing out newspapers. And all sort of these kind of tragicomic stories. It's the kind of thing that would be good to pass a train journey, is what I would say, or a trip, but I don't think it's the kind of thing that's going to give you any kind of lasting feeling or sort of lasting impressions. But there you go, that one done. I don't think I'm going to be picking anything else up by him, just because I didn't love any of them, and I do think probably The Man Who Wouldn't Get Up is probably the best thing he's done from what I've read other people saying about his work as well. And then next I read Roald Dahl's Madness, which I absolutely loved. Roald Dahl is just such a brilliant storyteller, just so much magic in these pages. Now these stories are pretty loosely surrounded by the idea of madness and sort of odd experience, but I don't think there's a sort of definite tie there. I think this one may have been a little bit of a stretch, but that said, I really enjoyed an awful lot of the stories within here. They were creepy, a few of them still make me feel a little bit when I remember them, and it was just a really lovely way to spend sort of an afternoon. Just, you know, you're in safe hands, I think, with Roald Dahl, and I was really intrigued to get to his adult work, and I'm glad I found I enjoy it. I have Deception left to read, so I think I may not get to that this year, but I hopefully will get to it at the beginning of 2017. And because I was clearly on a short story kick, I then read The Fat Artist by Benjamin Hale, which is a collection of very strange short stories, which centre sort of broadly around sort of American ideals and American sort of, I guess, fallacies in the way their culture is formed and operates. Now, I don't think I got on ever so much with Benjamin Hale's writing. I did like the feel of the stories, but I prefer a more lyrical quality to my writing than this story collection offered. The Fat Artist, the title story, was something that will stay with me because it was just such a sort of gruesome image, and I think he is quite good at using that striking image as a central point within a story. Not my favourite one of the short story collections I read this month, but it's interesting, and I think if you find yourself pulled to sort of grotesque but still realist stories, then this might be something you're interested in. And the next one I read was Lullaby by Chuck Palahniuk, or Palahniuk. I never know how to say his name. Can someone please give me a pronunciation guide down below, because I don't know, I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. I saw this one, I'd seen it on UnderTheRadarBooks channel and thought it sounded interesting. The concept is that a journalist goes to investigate a number of crib deaths where there is obviously no evidence of what's happened to these children as to what has caused their death, and he discovers that it's linked to this lullaby that they've been told by their parents, that's something called a culling song. So when said to these children, it causes them to die. He gets this tune stuck in his head and becomes this serial killer by no choice of his own. If he thinks it at someone or says it to anyone, then they will die. So it sounded interesting, and I thought I may as well pick it up. I saw it in the charity shop for a couple pounds and thought, what harm can it do? But I didn't get on with it. This is easily my least favourite book I read this month. I have read Haunted by the same author, and I don't think he's for me. I'm not a Fight Club, and you know, maybe that's something I ought to do, but I don't think I get on with his style. And I didn't really feel entertained throughout any of this book. So yeah, I mean, pretty much as negative as you're going to get from me, to be honest. There wasn't anything directly I hated, I just don't think it's very good. You know, if you feel differently, I'd like to know what it is you like about his writing, or this book in particular. I just don't think I get it. Sorry guys. And the next one I got around to was The Association of Small Bombs by Karan Mahajan. This is a story about a bomb that goes off in a sort of small marketplace, which takes the lives of two young men. The friend of which, a very close sort of family friend, was within the blast but not killed, and the novel focuses around the effects that this bomb has on the families of the victims, on the people who were injured but not killed, and on the bombers themselves. It was an interesting book. It's been getting an awful lot of buzz, especially in the States it seems, but it's been getting an awful lot of noise and positive reviews and feedback. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I felt a bit of an emotional distance to the characters, whilst I thought the story was very strong, and I thought it's a really interesting and important story to tell. I couldn't connect with them in such a way that this would be any higher than 3 stars, which is what I gave it. So not trying to dampen the buzz too much, maybe other people will connect more, but I think it lacked something in the roundness of these characters that would have made it a 4 or 5 star book for me. I know that lots of other people have loved it, so it may be just something about my reading of it, but I don't think it's quite there. Now the next one I'm very tempted to do a full review on, because my feelings are so mixed and I'm not going to have a chance to give it any kind of fair review here, and that is The Doubters Almanac by Canin. Now this book gets some major love from me, because the main character in this book is a brilliant mathematician. And I don't want to go too much into the storyline, because as I say, I'm not going to be able to do it justice. I think I'm going to be fair with it. But let's say that maths plays a fairly substantial role within this book. And for me, as someone who has a scientific background, this in itself is something that meant a great deal to me. And as silly as it sounds, at one stage the Kepler's laws of planetary motion are deduced. and I had like a proper thrill reading that, because it was the first time I can remember ever seeing like astrophysics in a book that wasn't a book of, like, you know, it wasn't sort of science fiction or a textbook. All the characters, all the brilliant characters you get in literature are the humanities, because of the fact, I think, literature, you know, focuses itself on the humanities, and it meant an awful lot to have someone portrayed in a work of fiction as a scientist and to see the value of that and the flaws and the issues around that. And I wanted to love this book so much, but I had some serious issues with the ways that women were portrayed in the book, and there were certainly strong indications that was in fact the opinion of the character as opposed to an oversight by the author. But I still found it problematic. I think I loved what I loved in it so much. I would have forgiven it almost everything if we'd had one female character show any sign of true intelligence in comparison to all the male characters who did. And I think it was really that difference that meant I couldn't love it. I wanted to, I really did. I would have forgiven it an awful lot for what it gave me, but I can't forgive it everything. So it's a hard one, and it's something that I'm thinking about a little bit more, and I think I would like to do a full review on this one probably at some stage in future, because I have quite a lot to say and there's a lot of things that are around it. But for what it's worth in this one, if you're scientifically minded and also into literature, this may well tick a fair few of your boxes. If female portrayal in books is one of your red cards, which for me it's a strong orange but not a red, it may trip you up, you may not enjoy it at all. So yeah, hopefully that's been somewhat helpful. And I just have one more thing to show you guys before I go, and that is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This is a poetry collection, and it's talking about relationships and loss and love and hope and unsurety and the expression of emotion in your early 20s. It's also got these just like stunning little line drawings throughout that have sort of, you know, a link to the poem that you're reading. They're really, really accessible, really short little poems. I really like the style of them being so short, and she, at 21 in writing this, was in a very similar place to the way I was when I was 21, and I think 21-year-old me would have eaten this up entirely, but I still have a soft spot for it, in the way that you do when you look back at something that you have felt. But I really enjoyed it. I know this is, again, old news, lots of people have been speaking about this for a long time, but I really did enjoy it this month, and if you've been sort of holding off on it for a little bit, as I had been, then I would recommend that it's worth a read. So hopefully you have enjoyed hearing me talk about all of the fictional stuff that I read in the month of November. It was a really good reading month. I read an awful lot of things. So yeah, I hope you're all well. Let me know what your favourite fictional thing was that you read in the month of November, and I will see you guys tomorrow with my next video. Bye bye.